Well, thank you for the kind invitation. I think it's amazing for me to be here in a beautiful place like that, and also have the opportunity to share with you some ideas and some thoughts and activities that we put down at the European Commission level for knowledge valorization and innovation and competitiveness for now, the immediate coming years, and then the new multi-annual financial framework that starts as of 2027. So I would like to, this title speaks about strengths and challenges. I will have a bit of time on the challenges, but I don't want you to be pessimistic about listening challenges, because there are so many reports flying these days about what Europe should do, what Commission should do, what everybody should do about boosting competitiveness and innovation. But I would like also to see that how we can turn these challenges into opportunities and actually be very optimistic of the things that we already do and the things that we can certainly plan and do in the future. So I will start with the challenges. These challenges are not new. These challenges come from the Draghi report, so it's not mine. So I just handpicked specific challenges that I think applies to Algarve and applies also to all regions like Algarve. And I think it also can be understood from everybody in Europe that this is a problem or a challenge which is there for a lot of time. Things we already do, but still the challenge is there because there's a lot of pressure and a lot of change coming from outside Europe. So you will see that we need first-class higher education institutions, and I believe that Algarve has the potential for that, because clusters of innovation just form around this kind of high-class institutions. So one challenge is to be able to have these kind of poles, these kind of clusters, in where the knowledge has been generated. Then the other challenge that you will see here, it's about the intellectual property rights. We heard about the technology transfer offices. We believe that there is a lot of things that still need to be done when we come to management of intellectual assets. Not only property, because we're talking about things that could be protected, but a lot of things in research process, in innovation process, simply is not protected, or is not protected until a certain level of maturity. And the protection comes later, but unfortunately people do not know that at some point they need to protect, at some point they need to manage and control their property, their assets. And when the time comes to protect, they just get drowned in all this paperwork and all these procedures. The technology transfer offices, I think this is a long-lasting story in Europe, that we have technology transfer offices established back in the 60s and the 70s, which run smoothly and they do amazing work. And we have universities, especially in regions in the periphery of Europe, that don't even have the function of the technology transfer office, although it's something that is being funded quite substantially from the structural funds. We see that the technology transfer offices, small and miraculous, but still they need support, they need strengthening, and they need skills and people. And also, all this difference in managing IPR, the regulation which changes even from region to region in some member states. You take Germany, for example, or France. You don't have unified terms in dealing with the management of IPR. And all of this, of course, affect the way researchers see their own career, why they should embark into collaborating with industry or protecting their IP and going and make a spin-off or a startup if that brings nothing to their career. So that's a huge challenge, and this actually where it stems from, that we see researchers only as producers of scientific work and scientific knowledge, which I think they're much more than that. That's the last slide on challenges. I will not expand more, but this is important to mention, because these challenges are about the commercialization of the knowledge. And of course, somebody will say, we do knowledge because we want to advance knowledge and science and we want to have results. But at some point, you have to see that certain elements that stem from science and reach the market have benefited society. So it's not a way just to make money, it's a way to return back to society the benefit of your own knowledge that you're generating. And as you see, and we will have also EPO confirming that. And actually, there was a fantastic study published from EPO about the IP and the patents owned by universities and how much they're being utilized. Actually, it was published yesterday. It is very important to see that small companies have only 9% of IP comparing to large companies. And these companies actually cannot, the SMEs, they need to close this gap because without having the rights, they cannot move forward towards the market. And also, we need to see that when we fund excellent research, at the same time, we need to make sure that what is there is also the right infrastructure or the right people, the right skills to be able to take this excellent research and do something with it. Be it more excellent research, be it networking, but also it can be a startup or a spin-off, or can be something that can reach the market and create social and economic benefit. So just keep in mind the challenges we mentioned. Industry-academia collaboration, management of intellectual assets, the need to protect and the need to think about protection early enough, and of course, how to use the whole ecosystem approach. And I have the impression that during these days, we're going to see this picture quite a lot. And these are the major actors, and these are the interactions in between them. And we believe in the European Commission that value is generated in every direction in between these actors. And indeed, it's a complex ecosystem, but certainly is not something unknown. It is something that we can identify ourselves in. So back in 2019, we started with this idea. If you keep in mind the actors you see before in the ecosystem, now it's a different way to see these actors and how they interact, which tools they use, and which channels they establish in order to create value. So value is being created and channeled through this, through industry-academia collaboration, through spin-offs and startups, through standardization, so from intellectual property rights, engagement with citizens and the civil society, and of course, the dissemination and the policy uptake. So all of these activities, so value generation is not only about going to market, which is one of the most important, of course, but also if you manage to influence policy making in your own region or in your country through your research, it's also a great value creation which comes back to society. So back in 2019, we thought of that. We put that in that slide, and I think this slide, maybe it's the oldest slide I have in my presentations, and I've been doing that for many years. But it's still pertinent. So it really works because it's still valid. It shows exactly, and this is the list of the tools that you can identify yourselves also. It's not an exhaustive list, but certainly it shows that things we already do, we just need to see them differently in order to help us move forward. So we believe knowledge valorization, which is a new term, and I'm really glad that I'm talking in Portugal because valorization can be translated in your language and mean something in your language, which I cannot say the same for my own language, for example, or even English. So, but we didn't struggle just to introduce a French word into the English language. We just struggled to establish a way to see things differently. And knowledge valorization is very simple. It's the process of creating social and economic value from knowledge. And this knowledge comes from research innovation, all the actors linked and working together, and transforming data and results into products and solutions. That's it. Very inclusive, very simple. Now, how do you put that forward? Of course, through intellectual assets, moving away from intellectual property and embracing a bit the idea of intellectual assets, which is a bit something that includes both something that can be protected, but also something that cannot be protected or should not be protected. And having this in mind, we went back to the member states. So Commission it's our job to go back to member states and check our ideas with everybody. Surprisingly, this policy on the guiding principles for knowledge valorization was unanimously voted by all member states because they identified the value of this policy back in 2022. So it was an amazing thing that we struggled to have just a paper, just a report, and then the member state said, no, that should become a council recommendation, a recommendation that everybody should follow. And that translated also into practical codes of practice, guidance documents. Because policy document is nice words that can be translated, fine. How do you do it in practice? And the practice is through codes of practice, through guidance documents that address the practitioner's level. So as I think the Anglo-Saxons say, we try to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to practical guidance. And we hope that this guidance is translated and localized in the member states and in the regions. And I was really happy to know that at least in Portugal, that already took place. It was translated and it was adapted to fit in the national codes of practice. So that's why we believe that knowledge valorization is part of the solution. And I said before that we do a lot. We might not call it valorization, we might not call it knowledge valorization until now, and you can continue not calling it knowledge valorization. It's not a problem for the Commission as long as you continue to do the practice. So if you do successful technology transfer, if you do successful intellectual property management, if you do successful inter-academia collaboration, you can call it whatever you want. At the end of the day, what you're doing is like valorizing knowledge generated from research and innovation. And these are just some of the best practices that, and you can identify a Portuguese best practice also in that list. And it's not just to flatter you, because it is indeed one of the best practices when it comes to industry-academia co-creation. And we have a knowledge valorization platform which invited everybody in Europe to post their one best practice, one practice that they do and they think that it's successful. And we have more than 130 practices from all over Europe, which demonstrates that we do a lot well, and we can learn from each other. And that's very important, because I think Algarve has the right mindset to be open to receive best practices, but also to give the best practice, because Algarve is a very good ecosystem practice. For me, the place here is basically one of the best examples to demonstrate how all the actors can come together. We did a mutual learning exercise. This is Commission terminology, which pretty much says that let's come together and understand together what exactly knowledge valorization means for all of us. 18 member states and some associated countries like Norway, we sat down together and we said, okay, what knowledge valorization means and how does it translate to our own context? And this is a small suitcase which I'm bringing here today, which has these 4 parts. Tools for supporting awareness-raising entrepreneurial mindsets, financial tools, of course, tools to incentivize the involvement of the R&I actors, industry-academia collaboration, for example, and whatever regulatory and other tools we might have. And I was asked to provide practices, best practices. I cannot go through all the practices, but I had and I will go very fast through these slides, to show some practices that exactly point out that we do a lot, and there's a lot of good stuff happening all over Europe. So, awareness-raising skills, entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, every time I discuss with authorities or with stakeholders, with researchers, I often listen, I didn't know that this existed. And it's okay, it's normal not to know something that takes place in Brussels, but if you don't know something that takes place in your own region or your own country, it might be a bit weird. So it is, I think, up to us. Commission, first of all, I think our awareness-raising campaign is the first there. But I think it's very important to make sure that everybody knows what we are doing. And all the entities collaborate and communicate, first of all, before collaboration, that communicate to each other. So we believe that we need to have communication on vision and strategy. We need to have the right skills. So identify which kind of skill sets we need and also raise awareness around that and find the right people. Maybe create some role models, and I think that today we're going to have the opportunity to see some role models also from the region that serve as an inspiration and stimulate the peer learning, and also guidance, important guidance that can be easily accessible and find, and also not only on paper but also with people. I will not go through all this. I mean, I will send my presentation. These are all links that you can find in the knowledge valorization platform, and you can be inspired. On the involvement of R&I actors, I think that we need specific support. I mean, researchers are basically researchers. They need mentoring in order to be able to do something further than the research. The same comes when we have to provide them incentives. I mentioned before that if there's nothing in your career that benefits your career by making a company or exchanging with the industry or even with the local society, then why you should do it? if you get your promotion based on your scientific papers, then scientific papers you will continue to produce. And we don't want somebody to stop making scientific papers. We just want at least some of the scientific research that has the potential to go to market, maybe not with the researcher herself or himself, with the other mixture of people that can do the next step. And also networking events and platforms, which is very important. For me, I think that through the European research area, and I think that we will have the opportunity to discuss later on, there are some incentives about changing the way we assess and evaluate research and researchers. Financial tools. There's nothing without money, or very few without money. Most of the things require funding, and I think that there is a nice way to see combinations of public and private funding, also dedicated support for setting up. You will see, for example, some really nice examples from Norway, and also joint laboratories, collabs, living labs, competence centers that reduce the cost and combine funding coming from different sources. Of course, Horizon Europe, the next framework program, Horizon 2020, is always there as one of the long-standing financial instrument from the Commission to research and innovation. And finally, regulatory tools. We see sometimes that there is a lot of good intention, there's a lot of good ideas, there's even a lot of action and activity which stops at a law which is outdated or stops at a specific, let's say, loophole in the law or something which is not being yet regulated and needs to be taken up immediately. But unfortunately, it is not that high up in the agenda. What I have to say is that for the first time, as long as I remember, Commission, research and innovation is that high in the political agenda. So maybe now is the right time to push for specific reforms at the regulatory level which can facilitate innovation and competitiveness. That's not the last slide. I have just one more. I just wanted to tell you things that we do, that we certainly will put down and do in the next year, 2025, 2026, and 2027. So these are things that already penciled down, and maybe you can identify things that you can see and be of interest, and also help us shape them a bit better or a bit more focused. We continue the awareness raising campaign, and we promote our codes of practice, that's for sure. But we want also to examine this capacity building, what we said before about technology transfer offices. The need to create more strength and more skills and capacity in order to be able to advise, support all the researchers and all the knowledge that comes from there in order for this to be transformed into whatever is the next step in the valorization path. Is it the product, is it the service, the prototype, is it more knowledge? So we want to do that, and we will have specific actions on this. We are investigating the socially responsible licensing scheme. So for us, it is important every public funding, especially the European public funding, to have societal impact and return to society. So if there is something that should be protected, then it should be certainly licensed in a way that the society has been benefiting from that. And we are investigating socially responsible licensing schemes which exist in some member states, but we want to see how we can extrapolate that at European level and even include it in the next framework program for research and innovation. We want to establish a learning lab for value creation, so an experimentation learning lab like the learning labs you know already, but this will be focused on the valorization channels you saw before. We want to have policy guidance for uptake of non-technological results. It is easy to speak about results when it is fast-pacing technologies, I don't know, in telecom or in AI or in computers. But when it comes to social sciences and humanities or arts, that takes a completely different approach. So it's not measured by technology readiness level, there's no technology behind, so the readiness is something else. So we need to see how we can valorize also these results, which affect directly how society sees the overall production of knowledge. And then further development of a measurement framework. So knowledge valorization, okay, what is it and how you measure it. That's my last slide. And these ideas for the future. And when I say future, is the next multi-annual financial framework. We have a new commission which will be established in the beginning of December. And we try to push certain ideas forward. And we want to establish this thing called valorization calls, or a valorization instrument. So you do your project, and when you finish your project, no matter where you are in Europe, you can always come to the European Commission and tap on specific amount of money and support for valorizing your results. So to have it also at national or regional level, but also at European level, but only for valorization, no further research, but I think in other European funds, it's called capitalization. In other funds, it's called exploitation. Valorization is more broad, so to valorize your results outside your project, so you don't need to think about doing it within your project. Support the use of intellectual asset management and drop every other plans and obligations for beneficiaries in Horizon. Promote an innovation marketplace. So it's about time that Commission establishes its own innovation marketplace and demonstrates results coming from European projects. Provide dedicated support services to all beneficiaries that have the potential to do that. And of course, continue developing synergies. I think that is something also that we haven't done that much. We need to do more and be closer to the cohesion funds, to the structural funds, to the reform funds. And why not having knowledge valorization as one of the reforms that could actually be discussed with the member states. This is just a slide with more information. Everything I said you can find in these documents as well. And with that, thank you very much for your attention.